Ay, empiezo a ver lenta tu pantalla.
All right, can you say?
Yes.
All right. So let's see the streaming. Okay, finger fine. All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so let's start with this. So first thing, what do you want to see?
Um, Everything.
Everything. All right, let's try that, man. Okay, so let's try to create a simple project to provision a virtual machine with Terraform. All right.
Yep.
So in this case, let me show
Okay.
you first what is Terraform.
Yeah. What is Terraform and when you use that?
Okay, so let me show you what I have here. So here is Terraform. So if I understand correctly, Terraform is going to be um, like a provisioning tool for different platforms as a service. In this case, you can use Terraform to provision um, Google Cloud infrastructure, or you can use Terraform to provision um, Amazon Web Service infrastructure. Um, the way that Terraform works is that you have to install it in your path. In this case, it's a CLI. So as you can see, I already have this installed. And yeah, this is the version that I have for Terraform, and it has different commands. In this case, like the the first command that you need to execute is called init, and this command, what it does is that it will create the Terraform state, among other things. So why this is useful? Because um, you can create infrastructure, and Terraform is smart enough in order to see the differences between the current state and the infrastructure that you want, and that will allow Terraform to like create only the necessary things. But first, you will need to see how we configure Terraform, how we tell Terraform how to create those uh, how 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 we can tell Terraform how to create infrastructure, and that's being done uh, with HCL. And as far as I understand,
Okay.
HCL is like a descriptive programming language. Let me show you more or less what it does. So we already see those. Um, we already saw that the CLI, but here are the providers. And in this case, we have many providers, as I told you. Most of these are PaaS. In this case, we are going to use Google Cloud. And here's a little example of how you can use Terraform to provision Google Cloud infrastructure. And this is HCL, basically. So as you can see, you declared a provider, and for like every provider, you will need like a set of credentials and other stuff that is specific to that provider. And once you have that, you can declare resources. and this is how Terraform knows what to provision and what to create in your cloud infrastructure. So in this case, you can create a Google Compute instance, and it will have like CPU, memory, and all the stuff that you need uh,
Okay.
to create the infrastructure that you want, right? So let me show you
Okay.
what you need to do first. First, I'm going to create a project. In this case,
So, quick question here. Why
yeah,
is this useful? I mean, for AWS, you have like a predefined set of configuration for machines like EC2
yeah,
or
exactly. Like let's say,
Miner, Pico, or whatever they are having. So why do you want to have this Terraform handling those kind of settings?
it's because Terraform is like infrastructure as code, right? So in this case, you can define the infrastructure in a set of files um, with a TF extension, and then with those set of files, you can just basically provide Terraform with some variables, and it will allow you to create the infrastructure that you need from those files. And that means that it's versionable, like you can set those files in
Mm-hmm.
Git, um, and then Git will track the changes of your infrastructure, right?
Okay,
That is
got
why
it.
it's useful. So basically, it's just infrastructure as code. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but the thing is like um, lately in the DevOps world, you define most of your infrastructure as a set of files, and you use those files to describe the infrastructure that you want. In this case, I'm going to start like simply with a single virtual machine in Google Cloud. Uh, so previously, what I did is like I have my own account of Google Cloud, and that account is like the free trial that they give you is like $500, so you can use it for free uh, for a while, and it lasts like for a year.
Okay.
In this case, I already have a project for this thing. Let me show you the project. Yeah, so I have this project. That is basically the domain name that I have. And then you will
Mhm.
see that you have different things here. Oops, need to go back here. And then you can use this project in order to create like the infrastructure that you need under the um, Google Compute server. So let me first show you the library that I have. In this case, I already have this infrastructure. Now I need to know where to show you what I have here already. But it's an empty project, so I don't have really any um, virtual machine running.
Okay.
Okay, so uh, let me first look for it. Okay, cloud.google.com, and then I just need to go to my console. Okay, so here's my project, and you can see the resources that I have. Um, and you can see like the different compute engines that we have here. In this case, I'm using this compute engine that allows me to create virtual machines in the Google Cloud, and that will
Mm-hmm.
allow me like to create infrastructure that I want, like virtual infrastructure. And in this case, you tell Terraform how you describe in a set of files uh, what infrastructure you need to create, and then Terraform will allow you to communicate with the Google Cloud Platform API, and it will create the virtual machines for us, right? So in this case, let
Okay.
me show you that I have nothing here already. So I have no virtual machines, I have no disk or networks here. So what I'm going to do is starting creating the infrastructure one by one. All right. So let's create
Okay.
a new project. And in this case, let me start here. Let me start an editor, but I need to open another project that I had. And then here, I'm going to create a new directory for our new project. In this case, let's just call it DevOps, right?
Okay.
So cd DevOps. So the first thing that I need is an entry point for Terraform. In this case, I'm going to call it, I think the convention is that you name it main.tf. That is going to be the name of the file that is going to be the entry point.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to open that file. And then, well, so far I think I don't have uh, I don't have any variables that I need to set, but let me start with the provider. So the first thing that you need to set up is a provider here. In this case, it's going to be Google. So let me see if I have the Terraform mode for Emacs. No, I don't have it. Let me install it. Just so we have um, syntax highlighting. Okay, so I think it's HCL mode. There you go. Okay, I think it is solved. So what I'm going to do is go again to our file. Okay, so there we go. So first thing, we need a provider, right? So if you remember, we have with Terraform we have a lot of providers, and in this case, I will need this provider. Um, I'm going to use basically the same thing. You define the provider, you define a set of credentials, and then you will get
Mm,
this will tell Terraform how to communicate with Google, the Google Compute Engine, right? Okay, so let's start with
yeah.
this provider, and then Google, and then for this to work, first we will need a region. Um, in this case, like with Amazon, Google Compute Engine also has a set of regions that you can use. So I will show you how
Okay.
to do this manually, how we will create an instance manually, and then we can just do it with Terraform. But in this case, I just need to check where is my region here. Say in this case, I think the region is going to be.
US Central.
Um, Let me check. I think it's going to be US Central 1. And then one thing is the region, and there is this other denominator, like dash C, that it will tell which part of the US Central 1 region I want to use, right? So in this case, let's just hard code
Okay.
it in the file. I don't think there is going to be a problem. So region, and then the way that you do this in Terraform is like you create this provider and you assign a set of properties. So basically, this HCL language is converted to JSON. I don't know exactly the rules of how to convert it, but this is going to end up being JSON, and then Terraform is going to pick up that JSON, and then it's going to apply the rules that it needs to create the infrastructure. So let's just hardcode this to US Central 1, right? So we will have that region. Then the next thing that we need is the project. So in this case, the project is the one that I already showed you here in the Google Compute Engine. Um,
Mhm.
it's going to be, let me show it, eldermail-io. So in that case, I'm just going to also hardcode this once again. Um, so let's just do it. So project is going to be eldermail-io, right? And the next thing that you need to do is provide a set of credentials because this is going to make API calls to the Google Computer Engine API. And for those
Mhm.
calls to succeed, you need credentials, obviously. So in that case, those
Mhm.
credentials are always provided uh, by Google. You have to download those credentials in the form of a file. What I'm going to do is just load the contents of that file. And then the contents of that file, the way in Terraform you can extrapolate strings, and in this case you need to open this extrapolation like this with a dollar sign and then the brackets. And then there are
Mhm.
functions that allow you to do some stuff within this interpolation. In this case, we have a function called file, and then you have to specify the path of the file that you want to load, right? In this case, I'm just going to copy the file here from another project that I already was using the same project, and then just specify the path here. Um, in this case, it shouldn't be that difficult, but I'm just going to put it in secrets and then the credentials in the file. So this will load the file for us. All right.
Okay.
Okay, let me write this and then let me copy the file. So in this case, I need to create the secrets directory, and I'm just going to copy um, that file from another place. In this case, I already have it in Doombot. This is another project that I'm doing right now, and then copy that to secrets, right? So in this case, I will have the file here. As you can see, I just copy the file, and that's the file that I need for authentication. All right.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Yep.
Okay. So now that we have that
Question
file,
there.
yeah, tell me.
You don't need to say this communication is secure, or where do you
Oh yeah, Terraform is going to take care
where
of
do you
that.
set that kind of configuration?
Basically, Terraform is going to take care of that. Like Terraform knows that you shouldn't be sending these things by without encryption.
Yep.
And remember that this is just API calls to the Google Cloud Platform. So in that case, Terraform will send those calls through the Google Cloud Platform API through HTTPS, so it's totally secure in this case,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
So there you go, we have our provider. And then once you have a provider, you will need to declare the infrastructure that you want now. So in this case, one of the first things that we will need is like is to tell Google Computer Engine or Google Cloud Platform to reserve an IP for us. Um, in this case, we need that IP because that is going to be our public IP to the internet. Um, so once we have that um, once we have that IP, then we can bind that IP to a computer to a virtual machine. So the first thing is
Mhm.
that, and that virtual machine would get that IP, and then we can do other stuff with it. But yeah, the first thing that we need to do is that is to get a resource called Google Compute Address, and then give it a name so
Mhm.
we can get those we can get that IP. All right. I think with the trial version you only have access to one IP per account. So in
Okay.
that case, I mean, if you pay for this, you will get more IPs. But in this case, because my this is a trial version, then we don't really need to. Well, we only are limited to one. So the way to create that, and this is something that I really like about Terraform, it's like you have a lot of resources and most of them come with an example. As you can see, we're already using the provider here, and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
look for the compute address, that is the IP basically. And they basically tell you this, like you declare this compute address like this, and this is the only property that is mandatory. And then you will have like
Okay.
other properties that are optional. And finally, you will have uh, things that are computed. Like, for example, if once you create the IP or once you create the Google compute address, the address is going to give you an external IP that you can use, but you don't know it until it is created, right? So uh, with Terraform, you can compute those IDs, and Terraform will get the information, and then you can use it in other places, right? So let's create this Google Compute address first, and this is going to be like this. So you declare the resource. In this case, it's going to be Google Compute address, and then you will have to name the resource. In this case, we're going to just call it public address, right?
Okay.
The name is whatever you want. It's just like as long as it's unique, right? Because this is going to be referenced later in other parts of the file. And then I'm just going to name it. The usual convention that I have is like whatever I create with Terraform, I just prefix it with TF, and then I just put here like DevOps uh, public address. Not just nothing fancy, right? And then I think this is all you need for now in order to create like our first resource. So I'm just going to
Mm-hmm.
save the file. Now I'm going back to my terminal. And in this case, in order to run this, um, you will need to run a few Terraform commands. In this case, I'm going to create the first one. I'm going to run Terraform in it. That is the one that I
Okay.
told you that Terraform will start the state because Terraform has the notion of a state, as I told you before, and then we can proceed with other commands. So in this case, it is telling me there is an error here. Let me see. Uh, config provider, Google. Oh, okay. I think I did a mistake declaring um, these credentials. So let me see what is missing here. So yeah, so this should be the path only,
The space.
probably. Let me see if it is. So it's supposed to be the file and then um, the path to the file. But let me go back to the provider here and see what are we missing. Yeah, provider Google. Oh yeah, so it needs to be a string, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
missing the quotes here. That's the problem because this function takes a string, I guess. That is going to be the path of the file, right? So
Okay.
I'm just going to save it and then running it. Well, there is this other command called validate that it will check your script for like syntax errors and stuff like that. Um, so any version. Let me just run it like that. Okay, so now it's downloaded the provider. So that's the cool thing about Terraform because all of these providers are just like plugins for Terraform. So it detects that you
Mm-hmm.
declare one provider and it will just download it to the state that you already have. Okay, so it says that Terraform has been initialized and this is the version of the provide that we got. Usually it's the most recent version that is going to work with uh, whatever is on production with the Google Computer Engine. So I guess this is going to work with the current version of the API that they have. Um, so what this created? This created this .terraform file. Okay, .terraform. And there you have your plugins and other stuff like the log and uh,
Okay.
a few stuff that you have there. So that is the first thing that you need to do. And now Terraform is ready to like apply your infrastructure and create it. So what we want here is run this command terraform plan. And terraform plan is like it will tell you what is going to be created. Uh, in this case, we only have
Okay.
one resource, right? So as you can see here, when you run the plan, it is going to tell you like, oh, this execution is going to be saved in memory. So the Terraform state is like fresh, and there are like other backends. Let's say that you and I want to manage the same infrastructure. So
Okay.
we will be using like a backend for this state, and you and I are going to communicate with that backend in order to share the, the state that we have. This is for distributed teams, obviously. But here
Mm-hmm.
locally, I can just use this state in my own machine, and there is not going to be any problems. So, okay, once that we know, this plan is basically the summary here is that it's going to add one resource, it's going to change zero resource, and going to destroy zero resources. And here's the cool part, like Terraform already knows that whatever I declare here in the TF file is not
Yep.
already provisioned, right? So that's why it knows that it needs to create this Google Compute address, right? So in
Yeah.
this case, let's just create it. And the command to do that is terraform apply, right? And then like right now, I think it's doing the same plan, and it's going to tell you like this part here is going to be created again, and then you need here
Okay.
to say yes to create that. And that will allow Terraform to execute the API calls in order to create the Google
Mm-hmm.
Computer address that we define, right? So it's creating it. It's going to tell you like the progress while it creates the stuff. And there we go. Apply complete. And one resource added, zero change, zero destroyed. And now we're going to test that we have it here. In this case, I'm going back to my console in the Google Computer Engine. And let's see the
Mm-hmm.
address that we have. I think it's in network. Let me see. Um, yeah. So I need to open here, and it's going to be network services, I guess. Um, no, it's not here. Where is the network here? Big data, tools, networking. Okay, external IP addresses in network services. And there we go. Terraform DevOps public address. This is the
Okay.
external address that we have. And this is the region and this
Uh-huh.
IPv4, right? So we have reserved this address uh, in using Terraform. But now that we have the address, like the address is really doing nothing, just being reserved. We need to create a virtual machine that will use this address to connect
Mm-hmm.
to be the front end to the internet, right? So
Yep.
in this case, let's go with the next resource. Um, and I think the next resource is going to be, well, like a virtual machine, I guess. So let me see what we can do here. Um, but before that, let me show you how to destroy infrastructure with Terraform. The command is really simple. Is Terraform and then destroy, right? and then
Mm-hmm.
this is just going to take, it is going to tell you the changes that it's going to do. So we have this Google Compute address, and it's going to remove it. And in the case that we had other resources, they are also going to be destroyed. So I say yes, and in this case, it's going to destroy the address here. Okay,
Okay.
destroying. There we go. So now the address is destroyed. So if I refresh this thing here, it's going to disappear. There we go. So that was the first infrastructure that we created and destroyed. Let's
Uh-huh.
create something a little bit more useful. Um, so now that we have this resource here, we need to go for another resource. In this case, we need to create like a network. It's going to be like a private network between the Google
Okay.
Cloud API.
Uh-huh.
So in this case,
Okay.
I'm going to create the first network that we have. It's another resource here. And then the name of the resource is Google Compute Network. Most of this stuff is like, if there is like a resource in the Google Compute Engine, it's basically going to be prefixed with Google.
Mm-hmm.
And then Terraform will know how to create those sources. So in this case, I'm going to call it like the front end network here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think network only needs a name, but let me check here in the documentation. Okay, network, right? Um, yeah, I think we only need a name. Okay, and yeah, yeah, we only need to provide that. So let me do that. And in this case, Terraform um, DevOps front-end network, right? Now that we
Mm-hmm.
have that network, we also need like a firewall. In this case, like with Google Compute Engine, a firewall is just like uh, it's a way to tell the Google Compute Engine which ports are you going to open to the internet, right?
Okay.
Basically, what you need here is to define that firewall to say like, oh, my network is going to listen to connections in the IP that I have from these ports and these protocols, right? So let me put the help for a firewall. Yeah, and this is like the basic example that we have. You have the firewall, then you have the name,
Mm-hmm.
then you need to specify the network. That's why we needed the network before the firewall, because this firewall is going to apply the rules to this network here. And then in this case, this is the protocol that is going to allow. You can specify it more than once. So in this case, we have
Mm-hmm.
ICMP and TCP, and then the ports that you want to specify. And source tags, I don't really, I think this is just metadata that you may want to use here. So in this case, let's create the firewall here for network. And then it's going to be Google Compute uh, firewall. And then I'm just going to call this firewall like the internet firewall, right? Because it's the
Okay.
firewall that is going to allow connection from the internet. So first thing is the name. In this case, Terraform DevOps from internet firewall, right? Then the next thing that we need to do is which protocols are we are going to allow, and also which ports. And in this case, I already know that we're going to serve web content, and also we need to connect through SSH. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so basically the protocol is going to be TCP, and then the
Mm-hmm.
ports is going to be an array of ports that we're going to specify here. In this case, the first port is like the port 80 for HTTP. Then
Mm-hmm.
the port 443, I think it's for HTTPS.
Mm-hmm.
And finally the port 22, because we're going to need SSH to provision virtual machines that are inside this network, right?
Okay.
And yeah, I think this is the only thing that we need for now. And finally, I think we're ready to create our own Google Computing instance. Uh, in this case, the resource is also called Google Compute Instance. That is basically a virtual machine. So let me show you the documentation here. There we go. And this is the juicy part, right? Like, how do you specify a virtual machine that is going to run there in in the Google Compute Engine? Um,
Okay.
right. Um, so you can see here like the name of the machine, the type of the machine. The type is just basically like it's like templates of
Mm-hmm.
virtual machine resources that you can use, like how many cores it's going to have, uh, how much memory, the disk that it's going to use, and stuff like that. So in this case, I think we're going to use another one. I want a beefier machine in this case, but let's try to use it. So yeah, once you have that, you can see that it will be attached. I think it's going to be attached automatically to the network.
Okay.
But in this case, you specify a network interface, right? And you specify that like the network that you want to connect this virtual machine to. So that virtual machine
Uh-huh.
is going to be created and be attached to that network. And then you need access config. In this case, access config, if you leave it like that, is I think is going to take like the compute address that we created there. And then you have other stuff like metadata, and you have startup scripts to provision the virtual machine and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there are a few things that you need to do here. Uh, but basically, what I want to create this virtual machine is to create like uh, a rancher server. So yeah, let's create it. So first we define the resource, and then it's going to be called. We said it was Google Compute Instance, and then this is going to be our um, let's call it front end, right?
Okay.
Okay, and because this is going to be the front end, first the name you need to specify, in this case Terraform um, front end node, and then the zone. In this case we can also like hard code it this time, so the zone is going to be different from the region, but in this case like they have a pattern, right? So in this case like the zone is going to be within that region. So what I
Okay.
understand is like they have different regions around the globe, and then within those regions they also have zones. So and the convention is like it's going to be the
Mm-hmm.
name of the region, and then a letter. In this case A. I'm just going to hard code it for now. Later I can show you how to extrapolate variables for things like that. And then the machine type. As I told you, I want something more beefier. So in this case, in the example, they give you like N1 standard one. I think there are more types that you can use. So let's see which types we have here. Um, Compute engine, virtual machine instances. Okay, so let's see which types they have already here. Um, okay, micro, small.
Cool.
Let me see what they already have here. So there should be like a tire. right? Where do they
Mm-hmm.
describe these things? Yeah, so USA central one, and this is going to be like the cost of the virtual machine. So customize. No, I don't think we need to customize this basic view. Okay, so here is N1 standard 1 and then N1 standard 2. That is two CPUs and 7.5 gigs of memory. And then this is another thing, and it's going to cost like $50 per month. So yeah, I think we can start with that. The good thing is I have like $300 uh, left in the credit. Um,
Okay. I
so we
trust
can
you.
and we're just going to start and destroy them like really quickly, so it's going to be a minimal cost. So in this case, it's going to be N1 standard 2, and then we have like this that we want to create, right? The this that is taken from. In this case, boot disk is going to be like the configuration for the disk that is going to have the operating system. Um, so you already have like these initialized params,
Mm-hmm.
and this is just going to define the type of operating system that we want. In this case, we already have predefined images. You can also create your own images, but in this case, I'm just going to use Ubuntu. Um, and then I need to see like the end of the text for this. So this is the disk that you want to use, right? And these are the like the name of those disks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in this case, let me see which ones. So we want Ubuntu, right? 604 Senial, and then the build name. So application images. Let me see. Option. No, we don't have existing disk. So how can we see which images we have available? Let me see.
I don't know.
Okay, Google Compute images available. Just that I need the ID of the image that I want. And they give you like a list of public images. There you go. Go to the images page. Then you will see the name of the image that you want. Okay, there we go. So we just filter here Ubuntu,
Okay.
and in this case we have, yeah, there we go, Senya. That is like the long-term support. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this part here. That is going to be the idea, right? Yeah, I almost got it like that. Right?
Yep.
And once we have the image, now we need to define uh, like the interface that we're going to use, the network for this. So
Mm-hmm.
network interface. And then for this, we're going to need the network that we need to attach. And in this case, uh, this is where the extrapolation of variables is going to be needed because we need to link this network to the network that
Yep.
we have here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have this network called front-end network, and I just need to reference that front-end network to the special thing called self-link. That is basically a part in the API of Google Computer Engine that will retrieve the data from that network, like the RESTful representation of that
Mm-hmm.
network. So in this case, let me go back to Terraform because I need to like to attach the network here. Um, so in this case, like you can provide a default, but I think the default is no longer the thing, but I just need to attach it. So the way to attach that is like this. So you open the extrapolation, and then in order to reference a resource that was previously created, you need first
Mm-hmm.
to write the resource type, and in this case is Google Compute Network, right? And then dot, and then the name of the resource. In this case, the name of the resource is here. It's from a network.
Okay.
Um, Control E, and then finally the attribute that you want to use for from this resource. In this case, they have a special attribute called self-link that is basically like the REST representation for this, like connecting the dots in the Google API. So I imagine that this is going to create an API call to create a Google Compute instance, and it's going to have like an attribute called network that is going to be a link or to the REST representation of that of the network that we just created, right?
Okay.
And you can see those attributes here. Most of them already have a self link, and let me show here network. The name or self link of the network attached to this interface too, right? Uh, and here we are passing the self link because this needs to be computed because we don't know it at this moment because if the resource has not been created yet. So
Okay.
that's what we need to do. And then here, finally, we need the access config for this computer. And in this case, like the access config is like, how are you going to access this thing from the internet? And if I just leave it like that, it's going to take an ephemeral IP, but because this is attached to this network, it's going to take the
Mm-hmm.
public IP that we have. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it like that. And finally, a nice thing about the Google Compute Engine is that they have these attributes for running scripts when the virtual machine starts. So I think it's startup script. There we go. And this is like the script that is going to be executed when the virtual machine boots. The first thing that is going to be executed. Okay.
Okay.
So a cool thing about Terraform is that you also have like you remember in Bash you can define a script within the script using what's the name for that? What's the technical term? It's like HereDoc, I believe. So metadata startup script equals, and then you pass something like this in like you will do in Bash, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
this will become a string until it finds another script text, right?
Okay.
So in this case, the first thing that I want to do is install Docker in this machine um, because I want to create a Rancher server.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, let me show you Rancher. So you already know what is Rancher? Thing I have told you
No.
before. But basically, Rancher is like an orchestrator for Docker containers. And what that means is that this server, Rancher, is going to be a server and an agent that are
Mm-hmm.
basically going to allow you to manage Docker containers through a set of abstractions. In this case, I'm going to use the first version of Rancher, Rancher 1.6, I believe. Um, but yeah, basically, you need to go to the documentation and see which versions of Docker they support. Let me see, what is the documentation? Rancher uh, docs. Okay, let's go to the docs. Okay, so now that we have the docs, first we need to install Rancher, uh, the Rancher server that is going to be the orchestrator. And in this case, I want a single rancher server, nothing very fancy. But I need to know which versions of Docker they allow you to use. So let me see what is this? What is install script? Because they already give you like scripts how to install it. Requirements, no. Okay, so this like it's a script that we already provide in order to install this thing successfully. So maybe it's in host because there you go. Getting started with host. Yeah, there we go. So these are the scripts that we need to use in order to install Docker and the versions that I need. So you see that they have a version of Docker if it is supported and if they have Kubernetes support. We can talk about Kubernetes later, but for now I need to pick one of these. Um, and because I need Kubernetes support, I will need to match one of those that have both. Oh, so this is the version, right? So I'm going to use this script in order to execute the installer for Rancher, for Docker. This is going to be the first part of my script. Then the next part of the script is going to be installing the proper Rancher server. In this case, they already provide you with a script to do it. And this is the script. Install. Once you have Docker, you need to run this script that is going to create a container with the Rancher server, right? That is going to be the second part, the next command that I want to execute here. There we go. So far so good. That's like the very minimum that we need to create a Rancher server. I think we're ready to execute this, but let me see. Yeah, just let me save the file and then going back here. So Terraform init. Okay, we already have it in initialized, right? Because we didn't have anything here. Then Terraform plan in order to see what we're going to need. Required field is not set here. Invalid or unknown key. Metadata startup script. Okay, so first thing first. Required field is not set. The network. So which part of the network is not set? Let me see. So we have the network which is needed here. Okay, so let's see which are the attributes that we need to specify here. Let's go back to the documentation. Okay, Google Compute Network. Okay, so the only thing that required is the name. Okay, and then this other attribute here, how to create subnetworks. Well, let's try to use it here, just in case, but it's like the documentation says that it's the only thing that we should need. Let's put it like that. Then let's plan again. Okay. Required field is not set again.
Firewall. Oh no. In the firewall.
Yeah.
In the firewall, you don't have to
I.
which network you are going to attach those roles, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to specify the network here. So how do we specify
Yeah,
this?
I think yes.
Firewall. Yeah, you're right. Network. And then you need the network name. Okay. So in this case, network equals, and then we need to extrapolate the resource. In this case, it's going to be Google Compute Network, and then internet, the name of the resource, and then the attribute that we want. In this case, we want the name of the network, right?
Yes.
That should be it. Okay.
Uh, you don't
Terraform.
need to do the same thing, the self link.
Oh, the self-link? I really don't know. I don't think so because if you've seen the example, they only provide the name, right? But yeah, we can see if there is the name or self-link. Okay, yeah. So we can use the self-link. I think it's safer to always use the self-link. Do we need something else?
Not sure.
Okay. Unknown resource. Google Compute Network Internet reference variable. Okay, so it's Google Compute Network. Then the name. Oh, okay. It's not going to be name Internet. It's going to be name front end network,
Yeah.
and then self link. Okay. Okay, and then metadata startup scripts. Let's see what's the key. Probably I'm just missing the key. Uh, Startup script, not a script. Let me see. So let's compare. Yeah, there we go.
Mm,
So there must be something wrong here. What do you think it is? Mm,
why did we leave the access config empty?
oh, because we need an ephemeral IP. So it's basically to tell this virtual machine to take the address that we already have there. And so what is wrong here? Maybe the documentation is not up to date. Okay, so let me save this again. Terraform plan. Well, init Terraform plan. Okay, network interface 0. Oh, okay, I know what's going on. So you see, it says network interface has an
Uh-huh.
invalid key. So that means that I just put the key within network interface. This thing here. So I need to kill it. Oops. I just need to take this outside of the network. Then let me see. Cut C Control W. You see that it was inside this network?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just going to junk it. Then that should be make it.
Oh, that's another one.
You saw what was the problem?
Yeah.
Okay, Terraform plan. There we go. Now we have 4 things to add to this thing. Um, so we have the address, the firewall, the instance, and finally the network. Maybe not in that order, but they do need it. Okay. So the next thing, let's apply it. Let's see how this works. And I think apply has something to force it. Uh, it should be an extra parameter, so it doesn't ask me for confirmation in order to do this. So I think it's auto approve. There you go. There you go. And just starting to create the infrastructure that we need. And you will see how these things are being created on the fly. Okay, so far so good. Any questions that you have?
No,
Okay, let's see how the virtual machines are being created.
seems these things are like to avoid when the sysadmin leaves the team and you don't know what was the status of your infrastructure, where are the scripts, and those kind of funny things.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, with this thing, like you basically tell your sysadmin like, give me your Terraform scripts, and I just can create the enterprise from
Yeah,
zero, right? Okay,
yeah.
so virtual machine instances. There we go. It's being created, right? So you can see that it has an external IP, right? This is the IP that we
Yeah.
reserve. So once this thing runs the script that we just passed, it will create a rancher server. So let's try to do that. 8080. Oh wait, yeah, I think I made a mistake here because which ports I opened? I only opened the port 80,
80,
443,
443, and
and
22.
22. So I need to open another port because by default I think Rancher is going to only have port 8080 open, or that's the port that we used to the Rancher uses in order to get requests. So this is the cool thing about Terraform, and I think like this is like the killer feature. Like you can
Mhm.
specify new things here, and Terraform should be smart enough to see the difference between what you had before and what you have now. So I'm just going to add this thing here, and then I'm going to show you the plan. And what the plan is saying, okay, it's saying that we need to date in place, and this is like the diff.
Mm.
You see that we now have another port, the 8080, and it's just going to change one
Mhm.
resource, but not adding nor destroying anything. Like this is the killer feature of Terraform. That with the state that is managing, it has the knowledge to know what things need to change in order to have the infrastructure in the state that you want. Um, so let's do it. Okay, there we go. In this case, I didn't specify the flag, and this is just going to change uh, that single resource. So hopefully this will work, and we will have access to port 8080, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So 88. Okay, looks good. Look like it's taking the request. So let's see the computer engine to see what this is doing. There we go. This is a Rancher Cyberman
Mhm.
running on Google infrastructure. There you go. This
Okay.
is our first virtual machine, and this is the first thing that we need to do. Pretty easy, I will say. Awesome, my friend. So for now, let's just destroy this thing because I don't want to leave that Rancher server without authentication or credentials. We can just provision those things later. Yeah. So Terraform destroy. Then it's going to destroy all of that. Yes. So far, so good, man.
Mhm.
Okay, it's taking some time. In the meantime, I think we can just like tidy up this script. So what I usually do is that I have a script that is going to uh, run these things for me in a single script.
Mhm.
Um, so let me just open a new terminal while this is being destroyed, and then let's create that script that I want. In this case, I'm going to call it infrastructure, right? And then let's wait for it. So Emacs. So first thing we need to create is the shebang, I guess. And we want to run this with bash. Uh, right. So let's set the book here and printing the statements that are running. So the first thing that I
Mhm.
usually do is like check the first argument. Um, in this case, I need an argument here, at least one. Uh, and then just print the usage. And then tell it like you can call it with create or we call it with destroy, right? To create or destroy the infrastructure that we
Mhm.
have. And then exit with one because this is not normal. Like we do require an argument. And then let's first check the argument with create. So just let's do the comparison. Create and then Terraform init, then Terraform plan to see the plan,
Mhm.
and then Terraform apply and now to approve, right?
Okay.
So this will create everything in a single step. Then the next thing that we want to do is destroy it, right? So very simple script equals destroy, and then
Should
Terraform
be one.
destroy forcing, so it doesn't ask me for credentials or anything like that. Um, and then if all of this succeeds, then just exit with 0, and that's it. So we don't have to like make this comparison again. We just do
You
whatever
need to
we need to
change
do, and that's it.
in the destroy.
I'm sorry.
You need to change the two, the argument that you are comparing.
Oh, sure, yeah. This is the first argument, not the second one. Makes sense. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then let me just exit this thing, and let's see how the destroy works. Okay, destroy, right? And we can just call it from here. So we need to make it executable. Execution, and then infrastructure.sh. Okay, and let's just call it infrastructure create. All right, there we go. And this thing is no longer here, so I'm just going to hit F5, and it's not going to be here. Yeah, there we go. This thing should be def, as far as I understand. Oh, well, let me see the computer engine. Yeah, there we go. We no longer have instances again.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing is like only, let me just copy it in another window. Yeah, it's no longer having access.
Okay.
So that means that the server was destroyed. Okay. There we go. Let's just wait again for this infrastructure. Oh, there we go. It's already complete. So let's see what we have now. Is there a way like to refresh here? Yeah, just click again. There we go. This is the new IP.
Mm-hmm.
Then port 8080. Not reachable. So probably still creating
Working.
the computing sense. So let's see front end. There you go. Yeah, it's still working.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just wait a second. Should come within a
Mm-hmm.
minute. Let me close these other things. Yeah, still working. Let's see the logs. Yeah, and the next thing is infrastructure destroy. We'll just leave it until we got again this thing. Okay, this is like just API logs. Okay, there we go. This is our server again, back from the dead. Now let's just destroy it again, and I think we're done for now. Okay. Oh, forcing. Okay, I think I didn't use the proper flag. Yeah, so it's not forcing, it's force.
Course.
Okay. Um, let's run it again. There we go. Yeah, so this is the first thing that we do. I think we can just finish the stream, like pretty cool. Mm,
Yeah.
okay, we should be done in a few seconds. There we go. It's dying. Will die. So let's wait until it dies and we can finish it. There we go, man. Now it's destroyed. Now it's destroying the network, and then it will destroy other stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, it just takes a lot of time. I don't know why.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but yeah, the server is gone. And one more minute. So far, we have no one in the chat. Okay, still just trying this thing. Can take up to 10 minutes, but sometimes it will just fail, maybe because of timeouts. But as far as you can, then in that case you will need to check what is still there. Just delete it
Mm-hmm.
manually. That's what I like to. That's one of the reasons that I like to use always like names that start with DF. So then it's easy to like know what infrastructure was created automatically with Terraform and what was created with other tools
Like
or
you.
by me by hand. You know what I mean? Yeah, pretty awful.
It's done.
Done. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's it then. That's how we finish this. Um, I don't think we need to do anything other than that. Yeah, that's it, man. Thank you very much. See you
Okay.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
See you.